This is what I've been planning to do for probably the last week or two, and I'm finally getting around to it. Full review for the Bionic Gym, because it's it's a very new and really exciting piece of technology that I think has a lot of applications for more than just weight loss. I think there's a lot of applications for people who have injuries, other health issues, depression, anxiety, etc. I've been following them for about 2 years. I finally bought in to getting one of the units about a year ago, and at the time of this recording, they still haven't shipped into the US. I happened to be on one of the Facebook pages for them when somebody in Australia, where they had been shipping to everywhere in the world other than the US because of FDA clearances, was selling theirs. They were having an issue with varicose veins in their legs where these things connect. So I picked it up from them. I got it almost 8 weeks ago, and I've been using it ever since. And I have been trying very hard to keep track of everything that I've been doing with it, so that when I did do this, or so that I knew if it was working well enough that I wanted to continue using it, or also if I was going to share my information with all the people who have been asking me about it, I was able to give them good and accurate metrics and numbers. So anyway, I think this review is going to be kind of long, so here's sort of what I jotted down that I'm going to try to cover, because I think there's a lot of stuff that people who may be on the edge of whether or not they're going to commit $600, $700, $800, $900 at the end of the day when this thing is out, for sale on Amazon or their website and done with a crowdfunding campaign, probably want to know before they get themselves into it. So basically just kind of the quick idea behind Bionic Gym, who I am, kind of what it feels like for me, then overview of what the Bionic Gym is. So I give you close-ups of, like the app and these things that I'm wearing right now. Then me at the end, so you can see what it looks like when I'm actually using it, all sweaty and gross. And then kind of the conclusions and tips. So that's the way I'm going to go through it on here. So, idea behind the Bionic Gym. The guy who started this, name's Dr. Lewis, I think it's Crow. He has, up on the website, been trying to figure out what the story is with your body's natural need to shiver when it's really cold. And so the idea behind this survival technique that your body has built in is going to be that if you get really cold, you start to shiver, which creates a increase in your heart rate, so that you will get warmer, so that you won't freeze to death. So is there a way to artificially do this so that we can use it to increase the heart rate and then burn calories, primarily for a way to achieve weight loss? So that's kind of the idea behind it. However, what I will tell you is that it does not feel like shivering to me. That's what I thought it was going to feel like. It feels like, to me, like if I close my eyes and it's happening, it just feels like all the muscles that I would be using when I'm running are firing. And so it's just kind of like running but not running. It's like, when you see your dog sleeping and the dog's running, it's like kind of sort of like that is the way that it seems like to me. It's just like the running is happening in the background. So it truly does, though, feel as though the product, the Bionic Gym, is working you, as opposed to you like running on a treadmill and you're, having to work. Like, you can seriously not think about anything that requires running and have this thing be elevating your heart rate and burning calories for you. So it does for sure work in that sense. So here's what it looks like. It's 2 bands on each leg, and it has these electrodes front and back, connects to a unit that tells it what the pulses are going to be. And I'll show you more of what these bands look like when they're off. But what it does is it sends little electrical stimulation currents, and this idea of the electrical stimulation currents is not something that's like brand new. This e-stim technology has been around for a while. The way that they're doing it, I believe, is somewhat different, and also it's going after the largest muscles in your body, so that increases the heart rate more when these muscles are flexing, and so that's what it does. And after 5 or 10 minutes or so of these muscles flexing, that's when you start to get this increased heart rate, as well as perspiration. And like, this is how I look 15 minutes after I did a 75-minute session, and I'll tell you more why like that has been the number that I kind of have found myself going with when I get to the part where I'm going to tell you when it's on me and I'm using it. So that's kind of the idea behind it. That's what the whole Bionic Gym is all about. And we'll talk about the different programs that you can use. Right now, this is in sort of last of the beta testing, beginning of production. So there's some things that they are working on that are going to be improving the technology a little bit for the connection to the phone, but also adding programs, adding a high intensity program, which hasn't been released yet, where it'll bring your heart rate up and down so that you burn more calories in a high intensity, kind of like an Orange Theory type of workout situation. So for me, I have been really excited about this because I honestly just don't have enough time to work out every single day. In a perfect world, without everything that I need to do, I would love to just go for an hour-long run in the morning, 5 or 6 days a week. I just don't have the time to do that. Or actually now the body to do that. After a couple of days of running, my knees start to hurt and everything starts to hurt a little bit. So that was really a really big draw to me, was that I could probably do this while I was working or something else, and also not put that same toll on my body, but still get calorie burn. But primarily the other thing for me was I wanted to make sure that I got that sort of like runner's high out of doing the exercise. That's something that's really important to me. It's like my psychological reset during the day. I go to sleep, that's my nighttime reset. But if I can get my heart rate up, some cardio in each day, just general mood and everything about me is totally improved. I'm totally sold on that. So that was the other part of what I needed. But in terms of general physical ability, etc., weight, and you can see I'm not, I don't think, tremendously overweight. I wanted mostly to get that heart rate and cardio in my life sort of every day, if I could use it like this. So that's sort of the who I am. The background on, I think, where this thing is going to be really fantastic is for people who do have significant health issues, to where like it makes it difficult for them to even get out of the house and get their heart rate up. Also depression, anxiety, other things. I can see this really being a huge game changer in that regard. So that is another part of this that doesn't necessarily apply to me, but I think is a really big game changer for what this device is going to be providing to the rest of the public, and maybe in medical fields, etc. So I wanted to kind of just hit like what it sort of feels like. I talked about that a little bit. Like for me, if I close my eyes and I'm using it, it just like it feels like the muscles that I would be using running are firing in my legs. That's how it feels. Now, when I first got this, and this is something that the other beta testers, I'm not a beta tester, but some of the people where I've been reading early on had said, you have to kind of break this in, because it's not something that you've ever done before. Like this idea of like your legs firing where you're not doing anything, there's a little bit of a break-in period. It just doesn't feel natural, to me at least. It didn't, and to most people it doesn't. Right when you first start it, you're like, whoa, I'm being sort of like shocked a little bit. So it does take some time. For me, it was about 2 weeks. I mean, certainly it's, the first thing that you do when you're a toddler and you can start walking is the next thing you do is immediately start running, and then, you fall on your face and you're crying. But the idea of like walk, then run, all of that physical exercise that you've ever done sort of makes sense as to how that's working, swinging a tennis racket, jumping up and down, all of those things, your brain's like, I'm going to do this, and then I do it. Whereas with this, it's just doing it to you, and you have to spend a little bit of time sort of getting used to that way that exercise or that workout is happening, and also building up to what your muscles sort of feel and see what's going on. They also need to get used to it before, at least for me and most of the people that have done this, that you start to see your heart rate go up, and you start to see your start to see the sweating on this, and then that calorie burn. So for me, when I started doing it, it was about like 2 weeks. Like the first day, mostly I was trying to just figure out how to put the bands on, which I'll go over on that. And then for the first part of it also was for the first like week or so was trying to figure out how I wanted to sit, because your muscles are kind of, and you'll see this, doing this. And so for me, trying to get my heart rate up to a certain point, that's like the same as like going for a jog in terms of my muscles firing. So my legs are kind of like bouncing around, and I had to figure out how I wanted to sit and be positioned in order to do that. And for me, it ended up being in a sitting position, and I also wanted to be able to do this at work. So that was a really big thing, and that's where I'm at right now, is to be able to sit, work, and then have this going on sort of in the background while I'm returning emails, first thing in the morning. Okay. And I'm going to pause that here, and then I'm going to show you sort of the device and how it connects. This is the device that consists of two things: the controller, which will slide in and make connection there, with a cord that connects over to the other leg wrap on this side, and then the leg wraps themselves. Okay, this is what it looks like on the leg. They have two different sizes, and essentially the electrodes on here are on the front and the back position so that it hits your largest muscles in your body, the thigh muscles. And that's why we're going after those, because with those flexing on and off, that'll create the highest heart rate acceleration. Okay, so now I'm going to show you the pads. Here are the pads that are obviously off my leg and sitting on the counter, and then the unit itself, which is now charging, and the cord that connects the unit. So it's those two pieces and then the wraps. And then these wraps, you have to replace the gel pads after a given amount of time. Like this one right here looks fine. I have not replaced my pads. They say they're good for about 30 days. And right now, I have not bothered replacing them. However, I can see like one starting to go. I haven't noticed any difference, so I'm guessing. And most of the actual wear on these was probably from the first week, where I was trying to figure out how I wanted it to sit on my thighs, and it was just moving around, and I got a whole bunch of this gel on my legs after I was done using them, and that was probably where I got the most wear. But since I've sort of learned how to put them on and off, they really haven't worn down on me too much at all. And so that's the unit itself. And then in terms of, I'm going to show you the app on this thing too, so I'll show you that in just a second. All right, for this part, to show you sort of how it connects, I have it mimicking what it would look like if it was on my body, just so you can see what I do for the app on here. So me, I have to reconnect right now, and I know they're working on this, but I have to reconnect it every time that I use it. So I turn on the Bionic Gym app, then I turn on the controller. This will show up here. It'll say, do you want to connect to this one? It knows that's the only one that's out there. It will ask me pair and connect. Okay. And the device password is just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I hit OK. It says paired. It says connected. At this point, usually I will jump into my heart rate monitor. I have a Polar H10. It's been very good. But that's not a review for this thing. I just think that was a good one to use. And then I come up to my menu, and then I go into my workouts. And this week, there's no intense one here. There had been, which is had a program in it that I liked a little bit more, but they're still messing with that, and they're going to add a high intensity program. So for the time being, what I've been using is I go under Pro. I skipped the start here just because I feel like I'm in a little bit better shape than somebody who is not running regularly, but it's not a bad idea to start there. So I go into the Pro, and I went into the Pro tones zones, and then Twinkle Toes is, I don't know where they come up with the names, but so there's 3 in here right now. I've been using the Twinkle Toes pretty regularly. The other one that was in before, and that was just saying that the file transfer has been completed, so it sends it over to this unit right here. I had been using Feel the Heat was another one, and I had been going back and forth between the two because I think there is some sort of muscle memory in there that your body starts to get used to it in the same way that, like, and I use the example for running because that's the closest thing I can see to this, where, you know, if you're on the treadmill and you're doing the exact same one every single day, it kind of gets, your body gets used to it. So changing it up helps keep that heart rate higher. So those different programs, I don't know exactly how the different programs do different things. They are going to add all of that information, I believe, as to which program does what and why to use which program. But, you know, I come in and I just hit start here, okay? And it'll tell me that it's starting. And then for the control, so that you can't turn it too fast and like zap, get, you know, go from being sitting to a sprint that's faster than you can handle, essentially. The volume is what controls the unit, okay? And now for me, it's giving me a warning, and that's because it's not on my body, I think, why it's disconnected on here, because it doesn't read that it's making a connection. But that's how the unit operates within the app. And then when you're done, you know, stop, and then that's it. And I've had some problems with connection that they're working on getting resolved in the Bluetooth, and that should happen before any more units are being sent out. But that's, you know, something I'm not worried about that from a review standpoint, because that'll get taken care of. So next up, me looking all sweaty. Okay, here's what I look like an hour and 15 minutes in. And I'll tell you why I do an hour and 15 minutes. It just ends up being where I hit about 700 calories. And if I do that 5 days a week, that's a pound of weight loss. So that's kind of where I'm coming up with it, to kind of keep a scientific, as much as I can, tracking. So on my Bionic Gym app, I'm at 71 for the intensity. So I'm about a little over 2/3 of the way into as hard as I can go on this. And then for my app, for my heart rate monitor, it'll tell me what my heart rate is and how many calories I've been tracking. I had to restart, which is my only real complaint with the Bionic Gym right now, and they're working on it, is the Bluetooth. So I got through my first hour, and I went to restart for a second hour to get another 15 minutes in, and they couldn't connect. So I had to shut down my phone and restart everything and start the program back up, which it did. But in that, I had to restart my heart rate monitor. So here's where I'm at with that. It's 139. If I keep it at about 135 beats per minute, I can work and generally do everything that I need to do without starting to get that, like, sort of, I'm foggy headed and I'm just, when is this thing gonna end? So anything under that, I'm good. And anything over, for me, about 125 or 120 is something where I'm gonna be sweating pretty well. And when I get done, I can say, you know what, this has been a really good cardio workout for me. And I'm gonna have that enhanced feeling of the endorphins for 4 or 5 hours or so. So that's what it looks like when it's on me. I will sort of twist to the side here, and you can see this is where I'm shaking, and you can see the shirt is, you know, sweaty. my desk sweaty. You know, by the time I'm done with an hour and change, my sweat towel is also sweaty. And then I also have my desk. I do most of it sitting down. I sort of got one of these things where I can work standing up. But for me, it seems to be this vibration when I'm doing it for an extended period of time, like over a couple of days. Like for me to stand up and feel stable, I'm locking out my knees. So my knees, after about a couple of days when I was doing it like this, started to get a little sore. Maybe I could have gotten used to it, but it wasn't something where I needed to do it that way. So I've been more back to sitting normally. And for me, if I need to take a phone call or something, I have to drop down my intensity on here so that I can do that. Or else it's like this when I'm talking to you and people are like, what are you doing? Are you out like on a run? So, but in short, you know, I have a glass of big jug of water here and I'm just, you know, sweating away, returning emails. And after about an hour and 15 minutes, I'm pretty spent. Like the people who do 3 and 4 hour sessions where their heart rate is up at like one, you know, whatever. They're in on this app, maybe like Blue Zone or something like that. So they're getting a long calorie burn over a long period of time. That's one of the ways to do it. After about an hour and a half where I'm trying to get my heart rate up to where I feel like I'm getting a really good cardiovascular workout, I'm pretty spent. Like I'm definitely feel as though I have done what I normally do when I'm outside, where I run, jog really, 6 miles in about an hour. And it feels like that, comparable in that sense. So that's this part of the review, kind of how I am all sweating and what I do for the tracking. Primarily, I really require the heart rate thing because it's just such a different type of feeling that I need to know what my heart rate is because that'll translate into calories and how tired I get. So that's the really important factor for me when I'm using the Bionic Gym. So I'm gonna stop this workout. I'm gonna give you a rundown of the equipment and a little bit more information. So I go back into my Bionic Gym app, which is here, and stop. Whew. All right, this is the conclusion part. After using the Bionic Gym for 8 weeks, but more like 6 weeks after sort of the break-in period, the big conclusion you've been waiting for, if this is the video you're going to find out if this thing actually does what it says, is yes, for sure. Totally works. This is me, you know, again, 25 minutes after I did my workout and, you know, I'm still wet from sweat. Of course, it's summer and, you know, it's kind of hot, but I use it and it burns calories. How do I know it burns calories? Well, for me, with a heart rate monitor on, my goal has been, after that break-in period, to use it for whatever it took to burn 700 calories a day, because Monday through Friday, when I'm using it at my office and I'm in the morning working out, it's 75 minutes or so to burn that many calories. 700 calories times 5 is 3,500 calories, which ends up being 1 pound. And as long as I'm not adding back in those 700 calories, which I haven't been, I have not been keeping exact track of what I'm eating, but I have kept a very close tab on rough calorie amounts. If I continue to take those 700 calories off each day for 5 days, that gets me 1 pound a week. Then after 4 weeks, I should end up being 4 pounds lighter, which has been the case. I have that to show on the scale. So it does work, okay? And also the part that is important for me, maybe not as important for someone who just wants to find out, you know, can I use this to drop weight, which is for sure the case, but for me is also, am I gonna be able to get a good cardiovascular workout for heart health and other health benefits, as well as for me, I really like to have that bump in my endorphins a couple times a week, ideally 5 or 6 times a week. Like I said at the beginning, if it was up to me and I had unlimited time in the world and my body didn't fall apart, I would go for an hour-long run a day. Like that would be the best thing that I could ever do. So I'm trying to replace what that does so that I can fit it into my schedule, as well as not have the same impact and pounding on my body. So it does that as well. Okay. So conclusions on here, those are my results. You know, I've lost a pound a week, and I don't want to really lose that much more weight, but I wanted to make sure that I knew that this thing was working. So that's how I figured that out, so that I could give a good estimation of, you know, is this just a whole bunch of snake oil, or is this really doing what it's supposed to? And so based on those numbers, for sure, it does that. It meets those expectations, no question. The break-in period, I've talked about that a couple of times. You definitely have to give it a couple of weeks. The first time that you put this thing on, it's going to be a weird sensation. You're not going to know exactly what you're trying to do. But first time I put it on, the first thing you feel is like a little like stinging sensation. So you have to kind of get over that to where your muscle's actually firing because of that. It takes a while to get used to it. 2 weeks, you start at the easier programs and you slowly ramp up on that. Even if you're in really, you know, excellent health, it takes a while still to kind of figure that out. Maybe a week is the shortest amount of time before you're going to start saying, wow, I'm getting a really good workout on this. You have to figure that in. Definitely get a heart rate tracker. That's the only way really I knew that I was getting to the amount of calories I wanted to burn each day. And the heart rate trackers, I have a Polar, it's an H10, that asks you a lot of questions in the app when you're setting it up about who you are, so it can give you a fairly good estimate. It's, you know, probably within, if I do 700 calories a day, it's probably realistically within 50 calories each way. So it's good enough, okay? And you need to see that so that you can see where, if you're using it for an extended period, not extended period for just a workout, but an extended period over 6 months or so, kind of where you want to be when you're doing this, which is a lot easier if you get on the treadmill. You're like, oh, you know, I'm going to set it to 4 and I'm going to walk for an hour each day. You kind of need to figure out the same thing, I think, for this, and that's the way that you need to do it, is with a heart rate monitor, and they're about $100. Program variation, I got a couple that I switch back and forth to. They seem to work slightly different, where it's like a stronger pulse for the front versus a stronger pulse for the back. And there's going to be more information within the app, and I think from the product that'll say exactly what those things are doing. And I just vary them a little bit, just a change so that I don't get too used to one. I'm not worried after 6 weeks that I'm going to run out of intensity that I can go up to, because I'm at the top right now about 72. I started it once I started feeling comfortable, and the intensity for the workouts that I like started around 65. So I don't really see myself jumping to where it's not going to get my heart rate up, and it's not going to be able to do what it's supposed to do. Like, there hasn't been that much of an adjustment to that, and they're adding stronger programs as they go forward, the high intensity programs, the HIIT programs as well. So I think that's fine like that, but just so you don't get too used to it. The other thing, I'm not going to show you the body scans. I have done a couple of them, but another thing to do is that camera. You can do them places. It was like $15 just to see sort of also other visual evidence, and based on those numbers, it shows that, you know, I've lost roughly that 4 pounds over the first time that was scanned to the second time that I was scanned, and more evidence that it does work. They're not dramatically different, because that's not that much weight when they show people who are doing these crazy crash diets, and you see them on Facebook, and it's like, you know, last week I looked like this and now I'm like a totally different person. That's not the case. Issues, I had to replace the little cable between them. Other than that, the only thing that I've had an issue with, and that was just the cable that came with it was kind of junky and it wasn't working very well. So I was able to get a new cable for this for like $6 off of Amazon, And then the Bluetooth issues, which they're working on right now. And I think before they release any more of the hardware units, they're going to have a new Bluetooth chip in them so that it is not going to have any of the dropouts, and that'll work better. So those are kind of the basic conclusions on this. At, you know, $600 or $700, you should know exactly what you're getting into, and I hope that's what I've been able to provide from a video standpoint on this in the review of the product. I'm a huge fan of what these guys are doing, and I think that it's totally going to be a game changer. If it's not already, within 12 months, all the stuff that they're doing, getting it into more people's hands, finishing up the programs in the app, it's going to do everything that they promised that it's going to do. So thank you very much.